It's one of the biggest fighting games out there. It's also one of the biggest controversial games that helped to establish the ESRB, and that is Mortal Kombat. From its creation, Mortal Kombat was everything Street Fighter wasn't. It was gory, it was brutal, and every fatality had people wanting more. It may have lost its way transitioning into 3D, but Mortal Kombat was still a bloody good time. But then the big blow came in 2009. Its longtime publisher Midway Games hit bankruptcy. But it didn't take long for Mortal Kombat to find a new home when Warner Bros. Purchased the rights to the series along with many other Midway assets. However, Mortal Kombat's future was in limbo. Its last game released at the time was the interesting yet forgettable and toned down Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe. During that time, fighting games had a resurgence in 2008 thanks to the success of Street Fighter 4. Sure, games like Tekken and Dead or Alive were still going strong, but fighting games weren't as big as they once were after the 90s. A game like Street Fighter 4 showed that a series can still stick to its roots while evolving the concept for a new and familiar audience. And when it came time for Mortal Kombat's return, its 9th main entry would do just this. The self-titled Mortal Kombat would be released in 2011. It's part reboot, part sequel, kind of like God of War 2018, and was way ahead of its time in doing something like this before it became a bit trendier. It's the kind of reboot I like to see. It opens up the series to newcomers, but for returning players, it doesn't make you feel like you wasted your time playing the previous games for all those years. And if you played Mortal Kombat in the past, you're rewarded for your loyalty. Funny enough, this part reboot, part sequel would be repeated once again as Mortal Kombat 1 basically does the same thing, only this time we saw it coming with the ending of Mortal Kombat 11. Mortal Kombat 9 was a chance for the series to climb back to the top and redeem its crown as one of the premier fighting games out there, and it worked, becoming one of the most talked about fighters to this very day. Like Street Fighter 4, developer NetherRealm Studios brought the series back to its roots. So much of what the game has would not only set the foundation for future Mortal Kombat games, but its success feels like it trickled into other fighting games and inspired them to change up their formula and presentation. A big part of this is Mortal Kombat Story Mode. Back then, if you wanted some kind of story content in a fighting game, it would boil down to the character bios and arcade endings. Often, these character endings would contradict with one another, or they would never feel satisfying after fighting for all those rounds. It was just a giant mess. Even previous Mortal Kombat games stepped up this approach by adding conquest modes where you could explore different realms and meet and fight different characters. When this type of cinematic story came out, it was revolutionary. First introduced in Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe, Mortal Kombat 9 would greatly improve upon the concept. The story, for the most part, transitions nicely from cutscene to gameplay and back again. It gives you a chance to play through every character, allowing you to learn their movesets, so when you do move away from story mode, you have somewhat of an idea of the characters you're most interested in playing with more. This story mode is one of the main things that makes Mortal Kombat 9 as incredible as it is. The story picks up in the aftermath of Mortal Kombat Armageddon's intro. Our favorite combatants have brutalized one another to death, and all that's left is Raiden against Shao Kahn. Knowing full well that he has no chance at defeating his opponent, Raiden sends a message to his past self to change the events of the future. And because of Raiden's choice and his desire to right the wrongs that would eventually lead into Armageddon, things don't go according to plan. We're transported back to the events of Mortal Kombat 1 through 3, but because this is part reboot, part sequel, things are different now. It's a retelling that will be familiar to longtime fans. Because of Raiden's efforts to change the past, the timeline changes, something that severely affects further sequels to come. Raiden's actions end up causing more damage than good, but it's here where Mortal Kombat is at its best. If you think you know what's going to happen, if you think any of these characters are safe, you're wrong, because this story has some incredible twists and turns and is all about taking risks. Like, no one expected Sindel to go full badass and annihilate a good chunk of the heroes, or for Raiden to accidentally burn Liu Kang to a crisp because of a disagreement. Choices like these are how you keep people playing and wanting more. These bold risks have stayed vividly in my mind for so many years, and that's why I love Mortal Kombat 9. More developers need to take risks like these. Don't play it safe, take a chance, and surprise the audience. It doesn't mean you need to kill a character, but keep us on our toes. Having this kind of in-depth story mode was a huge change for fighting games. Because Mortal Kombat 9 proved to be so popular, we would see more in-depth story modes in games like Dead or Alive 5 and 6, Tekken 7, and Street Fighter V's free DLC story mode. These developers were made aware that as players, we want to be more involved with these worlds. We don't just want to play a number of rounds and get an arcade ending. Mortal Kombat 9 built up this intriguing and complex story that would continue and build into its sequels. It kept you invested and it made you want more. And then there are the cast of characters. We're reintroduced to the iconic characters we all know and love. Because the story shifts its focus to each character and doesn't need to worry about the introduction of new characters, you get to know them and their origins a lot better. You see the relationships they build, the changes they go through. Fighting as each character feels smooth, chaining combos together with the satisfaction of your opponent having zero chance at survival. Characters feature various levels of damage on their body. The more they get their ass kicked, the more bruised and bloody they would appear by fight's end. Clothing forms rips and tears, sometimes more for the sexual appeal on the busty women, but these details add depth and realism to the fights. Details I wish further sequels had. Because Mortal Kombat 9 was released in the digital age, there were DLC characters. Today, we are so used to each Mortal Kombat game having special guest characters like Alien and Predator in 10, the Terminator in 11, and Homelander and Peacemaker in 1. Every new game has more and more characters added, and all of this started in Mortal Kombat 9. Going back and seeing how limited the DLC was for this game was interesting and kinda nice. Back at a time when these guests were surprising and not expected as they are now. You have Kenshi, Rey, and Scarlet, and then horror icon Freddy Krueger. Freddy Krueger's appearance set the bar for the appearance of horror icons in the future, and if you were a PlayStation player, not only was Kratos playable, but a stage from God of War was included. It was such a good appearance because of his violent nature. When Mortal Kombat switched to 3D, it took on Tekken's 3D arenas. Fatalities were entertaining, but weren't as strong or memorable as they once were. Its blood-soaked goriness felt more cartoony, and overall, the series sometimes felt like a joke. While Mortal Kombat was still fun to play, it wasn't as shocking as it once was. But when it came to Mortal Kombat 9, all of this was fixed. The game shifted to a 2.5D format, a blend of the old with new modern touches. Stages are full of detail and movement, full of life. They're never dull or boring, and for those times when you can perform stage fatalities, it just adds that special chef's kiss to a perfect match. Fatalities are gruesome and full of blood and gore, just as you'd expect, and who doesn't love the hilarious babalities, showing Mortal Kombat still has its sense of humor. Then there was Mortal Kombat 9's coolest new feature, one of its main selling points, X-rays. They proved to be so popular and became a series staple, appearing in subsequent sequels though in various forms and called different things. Skulls crack, ribs break, teeth get kicked out, even a novice fighter such as myself, landing these X-rays make you feel like such a powerful badass, taking a good chunk out of your rival's health. They give you an upper hand if you need it, and often can be the difference between winning and losing. One of my favorite features that has sadly been absent since are tag team ladders. I've played these so many times. Whether you're by yourself or with a friend, these matches add challenge and were a ton of fun. Playing alongside someone rather than against them is such a welcoming change and requires communication when switching. Then, when you're tired of the story, arcade mode, and all of the other typical modes the game has to offer, the Challenge Tower is a great way to spice things up. You do have your typical fights, but then there are fights with specific conditions, as well as side games that will test your reflexes and skills. Plus, if you want to unlock some specific rewards, you'll have to play through all 300 challenges that will most definitely put your skills to the test. Overall, Mortal Kombat 9 was a huge risk for the series. It was a fresh start and was much needed for the time. It revolutionized fighting games the same way Street Fighter 4 did. It cemented Mortal Kombat at the top of the fighting scene. It's a launching point for many of the features and modes still seen in Mortal Kombat games today, like an in-depth story mode, X-rays, and guest characters. While the series has been rebooted yet again, its foundation lies within Mortal Kombat 9, and it's an extremely important milestone we shouldn't forget about. For someone like myself who had very little experience with the series on the PlayStation 2, this reboot was an excellent entry point and was the beginning of my love for the games. So many good memories were made through Mortal Kombat 9, and for that I cannot thank the game enough. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. What did you think of 2011's Mortal Kombat reboot? What was your favorite part of the game? Please be sure to like and subscribe for future content. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.